Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I have been gone for a very long time. I have not made a video since July last year maybe. Yeah, I just lost all confidence during lockdown, didn't want to do it. But there we go, enough woe is me, and let's put some makeup on this face and talk about this case. I might use that again actually. Let's put some makeup on this face and talk about this case. So in today's case, we are talking about two star-crossed lovers from Lincoln, Nebraska, who went on a killing spree in 1957. So as usual, I like to do a little bit of a background on them, and let's start with Charles Starkweather. I haven't even told you who I'm doing. Oh, for God's sake, out of practice. Two people, a couple named Charles Starkweather and Karen Fugate. So Charles Starkweather was born on the 24th of November 1938 in Lincoln, Nebraska, USA. His parents were Guy and Helen Starkweather. Charles was the third of 7 children that Guy and Helen had. And Guy was a carpenter by trade, but unfortunately he had really bad arthritis in his hands, so he couldn't do his job that often, unfortunately. So his wife Helen had to pick up the pieces, and she started as a waitress. Wow, that's brighter than I thought it was going to be. They were a relatively poor family, but not massively. They were kind of just like a normal working class family, so they didn't have stacks of money, but at that time in their area, not a lot of people did have a lot of money. Charles was born with Genu-Varum disorder, which is basically it's a genetic disorder that we would probably know as bow-legged or bow-legged. I'm not even sure how you say that, to be quite honest with you, but I will put a picture up so you know what I'm talking about. And obviously, children being children, bullied Charles relentlessly for this. Kids just picked on him because of how he looked, and it didn't help that he was considered a slow learner throughout his school years, but it would later turn out that he wasn't a slow learner, he just had really bad eyesight and no one ever bothered to get him checked. So that obviously didn't help him. So Charles was considered a dim child, and that's not me calling him dim, that was a quote. But he really excelled in gym class, so anything to do with sport, he would do all the time. And of course, if you're going to do sport all the time, you get like more, what do you call it, built, strong, big. He just got bigger, and he eventually outgrew all of the bullies that would bully him for his appearance. And the tables turned, tables turned, and Charles then became the bully, so he would bully the bullies basically. Unfortunately though, it wasn't just the bullies that he would bully. How many times am I going to say the word bully? He would just pick on whoever he felt like picking on that day. You know, if he didn't like the look of someone, if someone had wronged him in the past, or if someone just looked at him a certain way, he would lay into them. He would take the mick out of people. He became the biggest bully. It's also said that he went from being one of the best behaved pupils in the school to one of the worst. One of Charles's childhood friends, named Bob Van Bush, I think you say, but sorry, this is well in the way. So I think you say it as Bush. I'm going to say Bush anyway. So Bob Van Bush was one of his childhood best friends, and he went to high school with him. And he would say of Charles that he was really fun, like great guy. You got along with him, it was a right laugh. But he had another side to him, that he was just mean as hell and cruel to anyone for no reason. When Charles was 16, he watched a film called Rebel Without a Cause, and this starred James Dean. Now, if you don't know who James Dean is, at the time he was like the idol for so many young men, and this is exactly what he was for Charles as well. He idolised him. He used to dress like him, he used to do his hair like him, and he would even put black shoe polish on his hair, because Charles was naturally not a redhead, but he had like reddish hair. So yeah, he'd put black shoe polish on his hair in order to look more like James Dean. When Charles was 18, he was introduced to 13-year-old Karen Fugate. And yes, 13-year-old. You know, nowadays, 13-year-old, 18-year-old, that would be very illegal, but it just wasn't back then for some reason. Karen was born on the 30th of July 1943, again in Lincoln, Nebraska. She lived with her mother, Velda Bartlett, her stepfather, Marion Bartlett, and her little sister, Betty Jean. I couldn't actually find a lot out about Karen's life. Yeah, there wasn't anything at all really on what she was like before this whole thing went down. Just that she was kind of like an average teenage girl. I mean, she was only 13. She didn't have much of a backstory anyway. But yeah, she was just an unremarkable, normal girl who fell head over heels for Charles when she met him. Or as in love as you can be at 13 years old, I guess. So Charles and Karen started seeing each other, started dating, and Charles dropped out of high school and he got a job at the Western Union newspaper, and this was luckily right by Karen's school, and he got the job basically so that he could spend more time with Karen. Apparently he wasn't really interested in this job, didn't want to be a good worker or anything, and his employer would say that he was the dumbest worker that he had. And again, that's not me calling him dumb, that's someone else. He and Karen spent all of their time together. They were just inseparable, did everything together, and Charles even tried one day to teach Karen how to drive. This didn't go too well because she wrote off his car, and now his father, Guy, was not very pleased at all because of course the car was in Charles's name. Charles didn't have the money to pay this big debt off, so it fell to his father to pay the damages. And he was so angry at this that he actually just kicked Charles out, told him to leave, and he was banished from the family home. So after he was kicked out, things kind of went a little bit downhill for Charles. He was kind of lost. He quit his job at the newspaper and he got a job as a garbage man. Now, oh god, I can't sit. I don't have my glasses on. I'm just gonna have to. So it was during this time as a garbage collector that Charles's mind started to turn to darker things. He just hated people by this point and thought about how he could commit crimes, how he could hurt people, how he could do bank heists. Heists, that is the word, isn't it? So yeah, not a great time for Charles. Now in 1957, 19-year-old Charles would take the step from local bad boy to murderer. On the 30th of November, he went to Crest Service Station because he wanted to get Karen a stuffed toy because, you know, she was a child. So working at the gas station was a man called Robert Calvert, and he was said to be a really loving, caring man who was very easygoing and very quick to laugh and make people happy. On this day that Charles went into the service station, he wanted to pay with credit rather than actual money, and this wasn't okay with Robert, so he refused to serve him, and this really pissed off Charles. So much so that he decided to return the next day. He returned to the service station the next day at 3 AM, but this time he had his shotgun with him. He entered the service station 3 times. The first time he entered, he went and bought cigarettes. The second time he entered, he bought gum. And the third time he entered, he was wearing a bandana and held Robert at gunpoint. He told Robert to empty the, what's it called, till? Cash register, which he did, and he took $100 from this, and $100 in today's money is around $900. He then forced Robert into his own car and drove him to an abandoned location. And unfortunately for Robert, he was shot by Charles. Apparently later on, Charles would tell Karen that he robbed a store. Didn't say what store, but a store. But he didn't tell her about the whole murder part.
Ooh, this does not match me, but I shall carry on.
So then, on the 21st of January, Charles decided that he wanted to go see Karen at her home, but Karen wasn't in. Karen's parents told Charles to stay away from their daughter because they really did not like Charles, so they said stay away from her, blah-de-blah-de-blah. Now, the details of what happened next are, well, they're a little bit foggy because we've only got, what Charles and Karen say as word, and surprise, surprise, their stories actually contradict each other quite a lot. So, according to Charles, after he had a right telling off from her parents, he went outside to wait for her to get home. Apparently then when she did get home, they entered the property together and an argument broke out. And, you know, it was the usual, you're not being very nice to my boyfriend, you can't tell me what to do, all that kind of stuff that I'm sure a lot of people have said to their parents before. However, an argument broke out and eventually Charles ended up shooting and killing both Karen's parents, Valda and Marion. Charles also killed her little sister, Betty Jean. And again, there's some speculation on how Betty Jean died. Some sources say that she was strangled by Charles. Some sources say that she had blunt force trauma to the head. But it's all swings and roundabouts really, because basically Charles killed her little sister, Betty Jean. Karen, of course, denies all involvement and says that when she got home from wherever she was, that Charles was already in her house and was holding her family hostage, and said to her that if you do exactly what I say, then I will just leave your family alone, but that eventually he ended up killing them anyway. This is going so badly. It never goes this bad. Why? Not a lot of people believe that this is what happened, and believe that she was involved, but there we go. They actually stayed in the house after this took place, and the bodies were still in the house as well, which is horrible. And they just put a sign on the front door saying that the whole family have flu and that everyone should stay away from the house. Luckily, Karen's grandmother, she was not buying this. And again, sources say different things. Some sources say that the grandmother tried to confront Karen, and that she was saying, you know, what's going on, let me in and all that. And other sources say that she just called the police. But either way, the grandmother called the police. Unfortunately though, the police didn't turn up until the 27th of January, and by that time the pair had fled the house. They had driven to a local farmhouse which was owned by a family friend called August Meyer, and he was 70 years old. He offered to lend a helping hand and offer his horses to help Charles because his car got stuck in the mud. But as they were walking over to his car, he actually shot August in the back of the head. And then he proceeded to beat August's dog to death. And see, this is what gets me as well, because yes, it is obviously bad killing someone. But when it's a dog and it's for no reason, and he beat it to death as well, didn't even shoot it. But yeah, it's obviously bad that he's killed people, but the dog bit just a whole nother level of, like, Karen would later say that it was this that made her think, I need to obey him in order to stay alive. Later that night, they hitched a ride, and the car that they got into belonged to a couple. It was 17-year-old Robert Jensen and 16-year-old Carole King. Once they had got in the car, Charles ordered the pair to drive to an abandoned storm cellar. And it was in this abandoned storm cellar that Charles shot and killed Robert Jensen. Apparently he tried to rape Carole King, but this was unsuccessful, so he just stabbed her in the abdomen. Charles would later say that, yeah, he killed Robert Jensen, but it was actually Karen that killed Carole King because she was jealous. She thought that Charles might fancy Carole, and she was overcome with jealousy and she killed Carole. But of course, Karen denies this and says that she was actually in the car the whole time. They left the couple's car and they decided that they needed a house to hide out in. They chose the house of C. Lara Ward and Clara Ward. Now luckily, their 14-year-old son, Michael, was away at school, but unfortunately their maid, Lillian Finkel was there. Unfortunately, all three were killed by Charles, and as they were leaving, Charles broke the neck of their dog. There was absolute outrage when all of the bodies were found, and the police launched a massive search, but they weren't really getting anywhere. And this obviously did not please the public. So after 10 hours of driving around, the pair needed a new car. I don't know why they needed a new car. I don't know why it would stop working after 10 hours, but I am no car expert at all. So they were searching around looking for a car that they could take, and they saw the car of 37-year-old travelling salesman Merrill Collison. He was, like I said, a travelling salesman from Montana, and he was just taking a little nap in his car when Charles came across the car. He tapped on the window and shot through the windscreen, killing Mal. Now, for some reason, Charles couldn't start the car. It was something like, it was, I don't know, some kind of different pedal or something. Again, not an expert in cars, so I have absolutely no idea what they're talking about, but he basically couldn't start the car. And as he was struggling, oh, pardon me, a man was driving past and he saw this, and his name was Joe Sprinkle, which sounds like a really cool name to me, and I'm here for it. Joe Sprinkle went over to the car to see if he could help the pair, and as he did, he got closer to the car, obviously, and he saw Merrill's body underneath the dashboard, dead. A fight broke out between Joe and Charles, and luckily for Joe, Mr. Sprinkle, he was a lot bigger than Charles, so he managed to get the gun away from him. By an absolute stroke of luck, as all this was going on, who happens to be driving past? County Deputy Sheriff William Romer was just driving past, and he saw all of this, so obviously he pulled over. As he pulled over and opened the door of his car, Karen went running towards him saying, "He's going to kill me, he's crazy, he's just killed a man." Charles obviously did not run towards the deputy sheriff, and he decided to make a run for it. He actually did pretty well, to be honest. He took the car that he was trying to start, he started it somehow. So he took the car and he went through a, what do you call it? Roadblock? I'm going to go with roadblock. So he went through this roadblock, and then he took the police on a 100 miles per hour police chase through the streets. And again, he was getting away. But as he was doing so, the police were obviously shooting bullets towards the car. And Charles felt blood coming from his neck, and he thought, oh my God, I've been shot. I'm going to die. I'm going to bleed to death. I'm going to die a horrible, slow, painful death. And he surrendered. Turns out he wasn't shot at all. It was where the bullet had gone through the windscreen and a bit of glass had come out and it had cut him on the neck. It was only a little one, only a little tiny. So he wasn't bleeding to death at all. So he surrendered when he really could have gotten away though? Surely they would have caught up with him at some point, but I'm losing my light. I need to stop waffling on and get on with it. So the next day, the 29th of January 1958, Charles appeared in Wyoming court. It was there that it was decided that he would actually be taken back to Nebraska, and this was because the governor, Millward Simpson, the governor of Wyoming, he didn't stand for the death penalty, and he thought, you know, if he goes through trial here, I'm not going to give him the death penalty because I don't really like it, I don't really agree with it. If he gets sent back to Nebraska and they decide that they want to give him the death penalty, then that's up to them. So in May of 1958, his trial began. And of course, his defence tried to go for the insanity plea, but there's things going up. Can you see glitter? Or was that just me? So yeah, as I was saying, his defence team tried to go for the insanity plea, but the jury were not having any of it. They didn't think he was insane at all. So he was found guilty, and he was actually sentenced to death on the 23rd of May 1958. He was only actually tried for one murder though, which was the murder of Robert Jensen. So now we talk about Karen Fugate. Apparently she appeared really upset. She was asking for her mum when she was at the police station. She was confused as to why she couldn't call her parents, and it was initially thought that she didn't even know that they were dead. Literally sat in the dark at this point. I've made the decision to not put on lashes because, as you can probably see, I'm literally sat in the dark right now. I've lost all of my light, and I haven't even finished the case. So as I was saying, Karen appeared really upset. I don't even know where I was. She appeared really upset when she was in custody. She was wondering why she couldn't speak to her parents, and someone told her what had happened to her parents, and apparently she broke down. She was crying her eyes out, and people thought that she really didn't know that her parents were dead. This was disputed by William Romer, the deputy sheriff that she ran towards, saying that he's going to kill her and all that. He said that she admitted to him that she did know and that she was there when it happened. Also, she actually had newspaper clippings in her pocket, so it's like, well, if they're in there, what did you just not read them? And because of this, she was charged with murder, and she became the youngest female in US history to be charged with first-degree murder. She was convicted and sentenced to life on the 21st of November 1958, sorry. At 12:04 AM on the 25th of June 1959, Charles Starkweather was executed by electric chair in Nebraska. He died believing that he deserved what he was getting, and he wasn't the only one that thought this. He was buried in Wyuka, I'm so sorry. He was buried in that cemetery in his hometown of Lincoln, Nebraska. He was actually buried alongside 5 of his victims, who were Marion, Velda and Betty Jean Bartlett, and Laura and Clara Ward. While in prison, Karen was a model prisoner, and she was paroled in 1976 after serving nearly 18 years. Yes, 18 years. She moved to Michigan and became a janitorial assistant in a hospital, and she lived a kind of normal, quiet life. She married a man named Frederick Clare in 2007 and was very, very happy with him. But unfortunately in 2013, the pair were involved in a car accident, and while Karen got away with severe injuries, but she survived, Frederick did not survive and he passed away. What interests me about this case though is Charles wasn't like a maniac like a lot of spree killers or serial killers are. He was just a normal young man. He was 19. He wasn't that smart, but he wasn't like really odd. He didn't have all these like crazy motives. He killed out of anger and out of jealousy. Karen was more complex though, because she was barely 14 when the killing spree began, and of course she could have been manipulated by Charles. He could have threatened her, she could have been scared for her life, but she also could have been a willing participant, and a lot of the evidence kind of shows that she wasn't just going along with it, she was a participant. But she still stands by her innocence to this day, and she tried to get full pardon in 2020, but she was denied. Many films have actually been inspired by the two, but the most famous one was Natural Born Killers, starring Woody Harrelson, Juliette Lewis, Robert Downey Jr. and Tommy Lee Jones. There's also a Bruce Springsteen song called Nebraska, which is said to be a first-person narrative of the killings. Not sure why you would write a song about that, but each to their own. So that is going to do it for today's case. Sorry I have ended it literally in the dark, but there we go. Girl's got to work for a living, and I finished at 4:30, so let me know what you think of today's case. If you've got anything you want to say and like discuss the case in the comments, that'd be great. I love discussing it with you guys who actually comment and interact. And hopefully I will be back soon with another video. Thank you for watching.